Thank you, Ishita, for the lovely introductions. And good morning to all of you. There's something so special about Litfest. I think we all come here together and we hear different perspectives, different views, and that makes it very special because we see our own journeys very differently when we hear others. And that's exactly what Mentormorphosis is all about. So this is my copy of the book here. There are other copies outside too. Please feel free to get your copies fit. So as I've been reading the book, what really stands out is how vividly he brings mentoring to life through his personal stories and personal journey. And it's very fascinating to read, the stories right from the start of his life to the various hats that he's worn in his life. So, because if we think about it, most of us are here because someone somewhere at some point had seen things about us which we never hadn't. So that's what makes mentoring so special. And it's an absolute pleasure to have this conversation with you, Dr. Khurana. And you've worn several hats, and I think it'll take 30 minutes if I have to talk about all the hats, but some of them being an actor, engineer, and an HR advisor, and CEO of a firm, an author, and of course a parent, a spouse, several roles that you carried. So it's wonderful to have you with us.
Privilege and pleasure.
Let me start right at the heart of it. So Mentormorphosis is such a powerful and intriguing title for a book. Tell us what this means to you and also how the journey for this began.
The title is interesting because I frankly don't remember now how it came about. It's something that Ma Saraswati did. But I was looking at transformation at the root of how a mentor contributes to a mentee's life. And I thought of the term metamorphosis, which is obvious. And I don't know from where, these were pre-COVID times, a lot of time to sort of get inspired. And I thought of this wonderful, even if I say so myself, term called mentormorphosis, which is the representation of what the book stands for. Probably half the reason the publishers bought it because of the title. However, the cover graphic, interestingly also, it represents a story about an hourglass and the conversion from coal particles to a diamond. And this story goes back to my school days when I had a very strict, almost tyrannical housemaster who believed in me so much that it caused me great anguish while working on me during allocations and dramatics. And much to the chagrin of other students who said he never gives us a chance. But I told them that he gives me misery. And at the end of the day, when he saw me evolve, he said, I do this because under pressure, even coal becomes a diamond. And that is the kind of representation of an hourglass with coal and a diamond that this cover stands for. In terms of how I began thinking about this, so it again is somewhere rooted in the Tata Institute of Social Sciences. During my time as adjunct faculty there, while I was doing my MPhil and PhD, part-time, sabbatical, where I met another alumnus, colleague, another professor, who said you should write a book. Because we kept chatting and he said, you have so much to say, why don't you write a book? And then there was another student of mine, a wonderful chap, Robert Chowdhury, who's done very well in life. And he kept quoting me, so there were these two freshers, and I said, okay, fine, if I write a book, and you yourself says there are multiple acts and multiple lives, what do I write about? And they thought about it and came back to me suddenly one day and said that there's a common thread in all that you do. And they thought it was time that I write about mentoring. because of this whole spectrum and the gamut of experience that I had. And so I said, so be it. COVID helped. I began my first draft of the rest is history.
That's really interesting. And Dr. Khurana, you own multiple hats. Various. Who can think of having a corporate role, acting, and the CEO of an organization, and so what is the biggest misconception that people have about mentoring, about mentors, and what do people typically expect that may not always be realistic?
I think for the most part, it depends on the role really, the context of which you are sort of assessing a mentor or a mentoring relationship. So, for instance, if it's the role of a mentor is teacher, instructor, problem solver, troubleshooter, even a coach, I think the misconception deficit is not too much because the roles are clearly defined. But where I come from, I believe that mentoring is really about facilitating and nurturing. The misconception there is that mentees believe that mentors can make things happen. And they ask the question, what can I get from a mentor? The real question they should be asking is, what is it about myself that I can learn from a mentor? That perhaps is it.
That's really powerful. What about myself can I learn from a mentor? So that brings me to something I found particularly fascinating in your book. It's the Da Vinci Vitruvian model for mentoring. It speaks about growth in multiple dimensions. And how has this idea played out in your own journey and the choices that you've made?
Okay, so I have 14 mentor types in my book, some of which have been not patented or created by nomenclatures. And I begin the book with my role model, who I call an iconic mentor. And it goes on to say that your mentor need not be someone in real time. In my case, Da Vinci was 16th and 15th century, time of the Renaissance in Europe. And somehow a friend of mine mentioned that, again, it started early, my wearing multiple hats. He said, you're like Da Vinci. This was casual trivia in terms of schoolboy chatter. That stuck with me. So Da Vinci became my role model. And clearly, if you read a very famous, was interested, you want to read a biography of Leonardo da Vinci, is very fascinating and very sort of relevant to present times, by Walter Isaacson. He was a polymath. I say I'm far from being a polymath. I'm just a dabbler, a jack of all trades, a master of none. But thank God for mediocrity that wasn't surfaced. No, honestly, that's. But the point I'm trying to make is that for me, none of this was planned. So if at all I'm a polymath, it's because of an accidental one. Just one thing, serendipity otherwise led to another, and I had my avenues open, and clearly the only thing perhaps I had as a temperament was impatience, where I got bored of things easily, and also maybe a passion for more than one thing. And clearly, Da Vinci died at 47, and he had 100 times more things than I had. Clearly, then you read it chronologically if you do it, sequentially, to be 200 years old. So the skill set here, if at all you want to approach, is time management. It's as simple as that. There's no magic. Yeah, as far as the diagram of the Vitruvian man is, again, like Mentormorphosis, it just came from somewhere. I was reading up and I saw this wonderful graphic. Everyone's seen it. We drew a circle, a square. Since the 16th century, architects have been using. I mean, this building probably was designed based on the model of the Vitruvian man. And it somehow fitted because I split that figure up and actually mentioned the 14 mentor types on that graphic. So it's just a tribute to Da Vinci that I used it as purely a tribute, showing my inspiration and influence to Leonardo da Vinci.
You just mentioned the 14 mentor types. Which one is your most favorite one?
So actually, all of them are significant because it's really the journey of us. It starts from your formative years as a child and goes up to different mentor types along the journey of growing up, friends. So that we come to later. But if you talk about the first one of the earlier categories, which is called a bedrock mentor, which is really about from growing up days, childhood, parents and teachers. I would like to say, especially today, that my father had the greatest influence on me in my formative years, and actually he passed away 5 years ago. But today happens to be his 100th birthday.
Wow.
So this is for him. So I hope I'm doing good, pops. And then, as I said, through the journey, there be game-changing mentors, which you mentioned that people along the line. So bedrock mentors, friendors, your BFFs, who are perhaps apart from yourself the closest, the 4 a.m. friends, whatever the balance of Gen Zs and stuff. But they're really the closest allies to and confidants to you as your peer. And also there's a category called the inner mentor, which is your conscience. So I mean, there's too much to go into. But clearly, that's
Answer my next question as well.
which is
As to who has been your most influential mentor and whole
so this came out of the right time. Good, same style.
So this book is very unique in some respects. Like every chapter has a very nice quote and beautiful quote before he starts the story. I think every chapter, and that really sets the tone for the chapter. The other unique thing about this book is it has 50 fundas mentioned in it.
Yeah.
So is there an underlying thread or philosophy that ties them all together?
Not really conceptually. In fact, funda is now an official word in the Oxford Dictionary. That's why I mentioned. My next book, which is the process, is about my journey in showbiz, and those fundas there are mentioned as takes, take 1, take 2, and so forth. However, digress. So the epigraphs, the quotes at the opening are really thematically related to the chapter, and the fundas are not related to a common thread in the book. They really summarize the promised learning in the chapter as one takeaway. So that's the concept, and I have to round it off cleverly to 50 fundas. On stage 49, that's 60.
And why 50?
But they're just 60 chapters, 50 fundas, some don't have. For a reason I'll come to later.
Alright, so let's make it really practical for everyone here. What are the 1 or 2 simple things people can start doing today to experience the power of mentoring in their own lives?
Okay, let me talk about mentees first. Probably there are more mentors here than mentees. this is essential because mentoring is built on alignment, collaboration, mutual trust. And expectations vary as we discussed earlier. Mentees in a relationship should not seek validation. But they must ask questions. They should be open, but not impressionable. So there's that fine line where it really becomes about a mutual relation. The give and take is mutual. Every mentor gains as much from a mentoring relationship as does a mentor. That's the essence of the true spirit, the true north, as it were, in terms of a relationship. And the third is very important. A mentee must know when to move on. That's the third. Loyalty is a misconception. If you overstay your welcome, you should move on. And move on to other mentors. It really depends on your need. Why do you need a mentor? There's no quick fix. I'm in trouble, I need a mentor. For what? Ask specific. Even ask a question like, what is that question that I'm avoiding to ask? Sometimes, the wood for the trees. And the reverse goes for mentors as well. I don't know how many of you watch Apple TV. There's a sports series called Ted Lasso. You ever heard of that?
Yes.
Oh, lovely. So there's a saying in that, and it's very profound, but someone says it very casually, and this I want to stay with this. It says, a good mentor hopes that the mentee will go away. Hopes. But a great mentor knows that the mentee will go. That's the level of trust, confidence, and a wider worldly wisdom to the
That's an interesting take on the mentor-mentee relationship you just mentioned. And a lot of times in my career as an HR professional,
Yes,
also I
let's
have
talk about
seen.
people. Oh, really? Huh?
Yeah, I have seen. I mean, the mentee expects that it's a one-way traffic where, the mentee will receive an advice and where the mentor will tell what to do. Is that your definition of a mentorship also?
I don't know really. It varies. Like multiple roles of mentor. Can I digress and go into your world? Siva's also here. I think there's no CHR or a whatever the term is now. CXO. CLO.
CPO.
Okay, whatever. Chief people of, yeah, sure. There's not one who would say mentoring is not. Okay. During my time it was. So, but my experience, it was the old days when it was general manager personnel when it started. And by the time I finished, it was VP HR. But interestingly now, CTOs, technical architects, CFO, what have you, multiple relations. If really, but my experience also said that mentoring in the true sense, coaching I understand, training modules I understand. It ends with really induction, the orientation, they plant a peer, who's called a buddy, mentor, and so forth. And then the journey ends because you're part of it. The target, the bottom lines and the top lines of the world. Barring, I think, someone in Bangalore who promised me that he would initiate Bosch. That was inaugurated that. I have found no organization that has a CMO being a mentor. So I would say that perhaps the first step, even small businesses, big businesses, I don't know, whatever the nature, service industry, at least have a CMO. That's calling a lot. But yeah, so I believe that I will rest in peace if ever I see a CMO, a Chief Mentoring Officer in an organization. Because that's really where the cookie comes. Yeah, sorry. No, that's not Bhadas. Just putting it out there. किसी के तो कभी बच्चों की घंटी बजेगी. हाँ, anyway.
And how does it work in a relationship, a mentor-mentor relationship outside of the corporate world, maybe in a school environment? We have some kids here.
So for the Aditya Miller group and a program, like you say, training the trainer, mentoring the mentor. So they also have advised at least part of your extracurricular, have an hour a week at the start of the time. For mentoring sessions where teachers with potential grow from being student leaders to mentors and share experiences and get the culture in. So yeah, I mean, and there are a lot of, I mean, we all have had teachers actually who are mentors because of whom we chose a particular subject, started thinking differently. So if you look back, just take a moment to think of your school and the teachers you had. Which is that one or two people who come to mind. They will be a very strong image of someone. So you already had mentors, or have mentors for the young ones. Yeah, just open up. Everyone in the world has a mentor. Bar none. It's just that you don't know it. Or had at least.
Right, yeah. On to our last question. And finally, when someone finishes reading this fascinating book, there are copies of the website as well. What is the shift or transformation you hope they walk away with?
So that's really up to the reader because it will be more of the stuff that we already spoke about and then some. But what is interesting since you asked about transformation, this is an entire section of a journey, of the reader's journey. It's a personal mentoring journal where it's an open-ended questionnaire. You can actually use the book or another template where the request is, and it's really helpful. Those who done it have actually changed. You go back in time and retrospectively look at your own journey based on the Mentormorphosis model. There's even a prenatal mentor in my book. So avoid those mistakes in future. You have a lifetime ahead of you. And also, it's been a rich experience and you've learned something, then reinforce that and use it for the future. So it's a value reservoir in yourselves. Just bring it forth and use it. And then based on that, you just examine what are the kinds, and more importantly, values and relationships that you would like to nurture in the future. Because those really matter, those kinds of relationships. So a lot of people actually, after I finished my sessions, or read the book, picked up a phone and communicated because there's this external. Write dummy letter that mentor has asked me. Just stream of consciousness or whatever. Just go back to see the problem here is in our daily lives we began as a person and we end up being professionals. That person should never get lost. That bigger motive should be stay true to yourself. That's the asset. Success has many connotations to each her own. However, so that's perhaps one of the critical learnings if you devote time to that section.
Thank you, Akash. That was really insightful. And what stays with me is that mentoring is not always a structured, it's not always a formal process or relationship. It can be a series of moments, it can be a series of interactions. and that shape us in ways which we never realized at that point, and probably we realize much later. And perhaps the real invitation here from Mentormorphosis is to not just look for mentors, but to stay open to transformation in every interaction, every experience, and every stage of our journey. I think that's been my takeaway. And thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you so much, Dr. Khurana. Nisha, would you like to open the panel to questions?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
Firstly, thank you for
Mike then.
Firstly, thank you for the discussion. At the start, you were mentioning about like mentees often asking, "What do I get from a mentor?" And then you rightly corrected it to, "What can I learn about myself?" Right? So, what about the other way around? Like for mentors, someone wants to mentor someone, they also kind of ask, like, I mean, what do I get in return? So, is there like, does that principle also apply vice versa? Or
No, it doesn't. Clearly, the relationship, the mentor needs gratification and gets it only after satisfying the mentee's needs. Also, I think this, because of your age group, things are different now. Earlier, it was assumed like John Maxwell's leadership quote that a leader is someone who knows the way, goes the way, and shows the way. Today, in these times of unpredictability, scarpe diem actually, uncertainty and rapid advent of technology, mentors really, no one really fully knows the path. So what mentors should really do in this day and age is navigate for uncertainty. So you know that path is not fully known. So I think mentors and mentees will also do well to address the need of uncertainty. So from enhancing emotional quotients, as it were, they should enhance aging, which is the adversity quotient. So yeah, especially with AI. So from EI to AI building AQ is probably a task cut out for mentors of the day. Yes, ma'am.
So you spoke about setting up a mentorship program within the organization, and I've seen very often that it's done. It's a recipe for disaster because of the way it's being set up, right? Because you're forcing a mentor-mentee relationship. So I used to be an employee and I run a company with about 600 odd people. So I would love to understand, what would you recommend, how much should really make it happen? Because some of these relationships are organic and you can't make sure that every quarter is your mentor will leave, so it becomes a little tricky for HR professionals.
Absolutely. I see the problem is because the pressure on HR will continue to go higher. And unless you have a paradigm shift where it's part of the program, it will never work. Also, probably the myth here is the contradiction. Mentoring is really a longer term process. Everything else is even coaching, training program, 6 months. The modules are much shorter. But relationships, and it's also a trial and error thing, what works. So, what mentee, take an organization example. You have a group of mentees who need a mentor, and there are mentors within the organization. Quick fix, take a month if you have to sort of make it work out for you. Test it out. If not working, look for it. So identify the need first. So even if you want to keep it generic, something like succession planning, it actually advantages to the CHR. Because the leaders go and there's nobody, and there's no continuation of legacy, and the recruiters have a good time. 3 years attrition, start getting few CVs. Look at the organization, and if mentoring programs going to help, that's the way to go. But look for the longer term, especially organizations where attrition rate like the Tatas or the Birlas, where it's less. that probably those organizations you say, okay, this guy has potential young CEO material or whatever. Let's start nurturing right away. Give multiple mentors. By the time someone retires, he'll be ready to go.
So identify.
Or she. Huh?
Identifying the people who you see as hypos.
Yes, of course. And that's easily identified.
Yeah.
I mean, HR analytics, AI is doing that job. Is that wisdom of yourself, so that human intervention will never do. It is what you really need to assess that and say, okay. And augmenting relationships both bad. I mean, you trusted someone, the trust was pretentious, they wanted different things. So let it go back, at least. Yeah, live and learn better. Tried and failed, not your tried at all. Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir, for the insightful discussion that we had. I'm almost restless to get up and get my copy of the books. My question to you, you said, sir, the great mentor knows that the mentee would go. My question is that who would know it's time to move on and how?
Very good question. Okay, I believe in something called intuition, which is a result of experience, certainly. But it's also a result of comfort levels. Either side, mentor or mentee, if they get a sense of not 100% comfort and a declining level, some elements of discomfort creeping in, and that's a strong enough indication. It's just that you should be willing to, don't look at the peripherals of what will the world say, am I betraying someone's trust? If I do that, will I get another mentor, and vice versa. It's too pure a relationship to worry about mundane things like reputation. So that's the spirit. It's the classic hermitage, Gurukul philosophy. Just give. In our tradition, Parampara, the Shishya, after growing, like to go, used to touch. The Guru used to touch the Shishya's feet. That's the purity of relationship.
Thank you.
Sir.
I have a question for the audience.
Yes. Sorry. Maybe younger, let's give a reference. Yes, ma'am. Oh, wonderful. So if you are clear, girl, about needing mentoring for a particular relationship, and for you, it's someone who will make you solid enough for the future, then you perhaps know. But you might not have, and I hate to say this, the facility or the liberty to look for one. So really, and I believe this is possible, that as the Buddha said, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear.
In the interest of time, we have one last question.
Sorry, is commercial relation between mentor and mentee?
So beg your pardon?
Commercial relation.
Commercial.
Because in the world there are a lot of mentors which are there, and there is a huge commercial relation. Is it a conflict of interest?
Absolutely. That adjective is misconstrued. So, yeah, if a mentor charges for mentoring, sure, that's a profession. But it has to be matched by expertise. It can't be that I'm qualified to be a mentor, hence I will mentor. Then the wrong business. Sorry.
Should we close the conversation? This is in fact a conversation that could have gone on as a full session for the full day. Do you take classes which are on the side? Do you take personal coaching classes as well for people to become better, or do you mentor personally?
So, all my mentoring these days has been with the arts. Screenwriting sessions, acting. Also, actually, communication, because I do sessions on interpreting text. So I don't teach acting, because acting can't be taught. It can be learned, but it can't be taught. That's another story. and a full backup for that story. But really, for communicators, it's understanding text, interpreting it, and delivering 100% of that interpretation, what the writer intended to the audience.
So that's
That's the sixth
So
ball in
we-
the middle of the bat.
brilliant. So we perhaps have closing thoughts from Dr. Khurana as well. What I loved about the conversation was that he's not just left us open-ended, he's given us life hacks for just about everything to go back with, and of course to go back with the book, as you said, you're like looking forward to it. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much, Nisha.